I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Thou shalt rise again.
Power to make multitudes run, squealing in terror at the touch of my little invisible finger.
Do you believe in werewolves?
To a new world of gods and monsters.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Eternal Midnight. I'm Chad, back again with Ken. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, man? Happy to be back.
Glad to have you back. So, we are jumping back to Egypt with, would you call this a sequel to The Mummy? Or would you call this just another Mummy movie starting Kharis's lineup of films?
I mean, it's not at all connected to the Imhotep Boris Karloff movie, but I mean, when you look at the box set or any box set these movies come in, it's always that movie and then all these ones, maybe a soft reboot.
It's you know what vibe I almost get? It's almost like that, it's almost like Friday the 13th. The first one was one killer, and then the next ones spawned the next killer.
Yeah. I mean, but even there, I mean, like, he's still, related to the previous killer. So, man, think about that. The Friday the 13th has more consistency than...
Friday the 13th, yeah, it's scary how much those actually do have consistency, at least in the first few movies. For the time being and for the schlock that they are. But hey, it's schlock that we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So, The Mummy's Hand. What was your feelings on this one, Ken? What would you say? Pretty good one or just a middle of the road film?
I would say, okay, so there's bad, middle of the road, good. This one is like just slightly over middle of the road, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. I actually didn't realize, because when I rewatched this one for this, I texted you that I was getting ready to rewatch it, and you told me, dude, I never knew the mummy doesn't even show up until like the last 20 minutes.
Like, I didn't expect him to go around murdering people the entire film, but because I mean this movie's only 67 minutes long.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't expect him to only show up in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought he would do a little more than that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they allude to him. So we know there's a mummy in the movie, but like, we don't see him until they like reveal him like through that sarcophagus. But we do, before that, we get those sort of flashbacks to ancient Egypt where he's being buried, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was just all at the beginning, wasn't it? That was basically just a dump, wasn't it? Like a exposition visual dump.
I think it was. And also, did you catch that they just reused a lot of stock footage from the first mummy?
They reused like all of it.
Yeah. And what they did though was they pretty much, they had new shots of close-ups of the actor Tom Tyler who played Kharis.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Let's see. Hold on, I want to verify his name. I'm on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Tom Tyler.
Tom Tyler. Okay, perfect. So they have close-ups of him, but for the wide shots, it's still Boris Karloff.
Even the rapping scene was still Karloff, wasn't it?
No, I think that may have been Tom Tyler being wrapped up.
Okay.
But I don't know. But they still have those servants being speared after burying him.
Yup. Which, I mean, you know what? But the best part is, back then, they could get away with it because there was no home media.
Exactly. So
and most likely, you only saw a movie once in theaters, if you saw it at all. So they're just like, what's it matter?
Yeah.
They're going to call us out. And if they do, what do we care?
And the first one came out in 1932. This one came out in 1940. So that's an 8-year gap. So people probably forgot.
Exactly. People had... 8 years. And remember, this isn't there's, for you youngsters out there, no YouTube back then. You weren't rewatching these clips. If you did not see it in theaters, you never saw it.
You missed it.
Ever.
Exactly.
It wasn't possible for you to see it.
To me, it's almost shocking that so many of these movies even survived. Because I would think that back then they would imagine a movie served its purpose. Let's film over it or something.
Or like that. I mean, like they basically did, just stick it into a vault, and if we ever want to make some quick cash on a weekend, like they did with Frankenstein and Dracula, just hey, load them into a few theaters, let's make a few bucks. But even that, they probably didn't even do that often.
And that's why a lot of those movies are lost, because apparently actual film is highly flammable, and a lot of those warehouses burnt down.
And I know there was a big, I don't remember the year, I don't remember where, I just know at one point there was like a big fire, I think on a Universal, somewhere in a Universal lot, and a lot of stuff was lost because of that. Yeah. So it is amazing that stuff like you said, Frankenstein and Dracula have even made it.
Yeah. But okay, so I want to ask, I will be able to talk more about the Mummy, because I mean he's only in the movie for like the last 15-20 minutes. I want to ask, what do you think about the poor man's Abbott and Costello, the characters Steve and Babe?
So when I'm watching it and Steve calls him Babe, at first, okay, I should have known better because this was 1940. I thought they were a gay couple at first. I really did. Because aside from Babe Ruth, I've never heard of a man with Babe as his name. Right. So I was like, oh, this is his boyfriend? I was like, I didn't know they put this in films back then, but okay.
Very progressive for the time.
I was like, first gay couple back in 1940 in The Mummy's hand, but then he
who would have guessed?
Right. But then he meets the like the magician guy. That guy was cool.
Oh yeah.
Shoot, what was his name?
Wasn't it the Great something?
Yep, the Great Silvani.
Yeah, Mr. Silvani. Yep, there he is, played by Cecil Kellaway.
Yep, and he meets him, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Steve, and this is my friend Babe Jensen." I'm like, "Oh, Babe's his first name."
Yeah,
got it. Now, okay, now it makes sense. But you know what? Overall, I didn't think they were that bad. Steve was kind of forgettable, but Babe was all right.
Steve is definitely the straight man to Babe's being the sort of the goofball.
Yep, definitely, because like that, Babe, he's going up against the magician doing a card trick, and he's like, if I lose, I buy everyone a drink, and then he loses, and like, oh, it's because you were playing against a magician.
Yeah, and didn't Steve like see that? Didn't he like see the poster?
Tried to tell him,
sort of like, where the X-nay on the fucking bottle?
And he's just like, I got this, Steve. I got this. And he's like, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead. Lose all your fucking money.
You know what I did notice about this film, though, a little bit? This movie, in a way, felt like it did inspire the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, kind of.
I can definitely see that. Well, you know what's funny is, okay, I think it all sort of comes in cycles. Because I always thought the Mummy movies, like, okay, the Mummy movies and the National Treasure movies, like, they felt like they were very Indiana Jones inspired. But, I mean, hell, I feel like these inspired Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It had to have.
Yeah, but I definitely think, I feel like, yeah, the Brendan Fraser, Stephen Sommers movies, like, were probably, even though I think the Mummy is called Imhotep in those movies, or in the first one at least, I feel like it's definitely more a remake of this than the original. Yeah,
like this one, the two guys going on the adventure, the girl going along, they've got a group of people with them. You know, the mummy's cursed, don't go in there. The ancient group trying to stop people from getting near the mummy. Yeah, they definitely took a lot from this film for that one.
It almost feels like, okay, it feels like the mummy and the love interest are more remade from the original, whereas the adventurers, the leading heroes, are more taken from the Kharis movies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And have we addressed the name of the mummy in this?
Kharis?
Yeah, I don't think we've addressed it yet, have we?
I don't think. I mean, he's Kharis. Well, the thing with this mummy, and it's like, I don't get what's threatening about him. I mean, if you have a stick, just hit him.
Yeah, well, real quick, the reason I wanted to bring up the name thing is because, the obvious reason that this isn't a direct sequel to the original Mummy is that Mummy is Imhotep. He has more agency. He's sort of like a Dracula type figure, whereas this, he's, just a a shambling pawn that's strangling people, you know. But yeah, no, the Mummy is definitely a less threatening monster. My dad actually always said, back when he was a young kid, that the one universal monster that scared him was the Wolfman, which we'll be talking about pretty soon. But he said the reason is, Dracula bites your neck and you live forever. Frankenstein and the Mummy, I always figured I could outrun. He said, the Wolfman scared me.
I can see that. I always had the same quick spin-off. I always had the same theology when I was a kid, and I thought about the 80s slashers. Michael Myers, I was always like, it's not Halloween. It's not Halloween. Jason, I was like, I'm not at camp. With Freddy, there was no running from that one.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, I always had to find a way to justify why I was going to be fine.
Yeah. Also, I really enjoyed your. I want to say I really enjoyed your episode on the first one that you've released on the first two Nightmare movies, and a little side note. I want to say I felt like Santino was so scared to say it, but when he said talking about the second movie, he's just like, I don't want to offend anyone, but this movie's pretty gay. It's something that you didn't bring up, but you and I both saw in the documentary on the Nightmare series. The director of that movie had no idea.
He's sitting there playing, I had no clue. And even Bob Shea was like, none of us really realized it at the time.
It's just
yeah, okay.
Did the writer not did the writer not realize it? He had to have. But anyways, we're getting sidetracked.
Oh, that's the best part of horror. There's always a way to sidetrack and jump around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did we do when we were talking about the Invisible Man Returns? Didn't we ultimately get to the Mario Brothers games?
Oh yeah, we spun way off on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. But you want to know the weird thing about this movie is this is probably the most simple film yet. I know this sounds bad, but it's I don't really have anything to say. It's there was the ancient society there to protect and make sure his tomb never got disturbed, and the princess's tomb, correct?
Yep.
And that's why they brought Kharis back, because they were getting too close to the princess's tomb. But it's just like I said, I don't know why I'm supposed to be scared of Kharis.
He's
rip at his bandages or something. It almost feels like that scene it almost feels like it's like that scene in the Monster Squad.
Yep.
He just crumbles.
He just crumbles underneath. No, and
it also always reminds me of that scene in Scary Movie 2 where Cindy's running from the skeleton and she's screaming bloody murder, and then Brenda sees it's a skeleton. She's like, "You scared of this?" And she just rips his leg off and makes him fall to pieces. It's that's kind of how easy it would be to defeat a mummy, probably. It wouldn't be that hard.
Exactly. No. And another thing that needs to be brought up, and this isn't me original, another guy that neither of us ever shut the hell up about, James Rolfe pointed this out in his review of this movie. The high priest, played by George Zucco, who's a classic horror actor, but he warns the high priest that is, replacing him as he ages out of the position. He says, no more than 6 Tana leaves or Kharis will become an unstoppable monster. So they give us that warning hey, remember this, but then it never pays off. He never gets that many Tana leaves. He never becomes the unstoppable monster. He almost does. But I also gotta say, you mentioned just not being scared of him. How intimidating can a monster be when the guy pushes that Tana leaf tea and the monster crawls down and tries to suck it off the floor?
I laughed when I saw that. I was like, here's our big bad monster. Here's
our big bad guy.
He's licking the cracks between a stone floor.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're laughing at it, but again, like I said, there's bad, middle of the road, good. This is slightly over middle of the road for me. It's still a fun movie.
Yeah, these characters weren't bad. The main female lead. Hey, for 1940, that girl had an attitude and she took care of herself.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Which
Shit,
we'll
yeah.
also bring up Badass Lady of the 40s in the next movie we talk about, but that'll be for next time.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
But yeah, I do particularly like the scene where she sort of calls out those guys because she thinks that they scammed her dad.
Mm-hmm. And her
Yeah,
dad's like,
that's a great scene.
and you know what was funny about that? If you think about it, it was like before she went there, her dad fell in the magic trunk. She opened it up and he was gone.
Yeah,
Then he locked himself in his normal trunk.
yeah.
And it's like, that's a bit of comedy like you wouldn't expect, but it actually worked.
I feel like they made that character a magician just so they could do little gags like that. Like, there's no other reason for him to be a magician.
No. I mean,
Because like they need someone to fund their expedition. It's like, oh, let's make it a magician so we can put in some cool little gags.
yeah. And it's funny because it worked. He gave me a few laughs.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Is there anything else you want to say on this one?
I don't really have anything.
I'm not sure if I asked you. Are you sort of
Oh.
at the same point?
And Babe just randomly blows the new priest away.
Yes.
Unarmed,
Okay.
just like 3 or 4 shots, just point blank range into an unarmed man's chest.
Thank you for bringing it up because I feel like no hero. I totally forgot about that. Well, I didn't forget, but I remember watching it and I wanted to talk about that. I feel like no hero today could shoot an unarmed person.
That was a straight up execution.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And
Like-
also, how does he say he's just like, I'll give you to the count of 3 before I pump you full of lead.
Yeah, and then
What? And the guy just stands there.
yeah, and that's like a gangster movie. Just blows him away and down the steps he goes. And it's like, and it wasn't he just asking him like, oh, where's my friend or something? And he's like, I'll never tell you. And then he just murders him. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Our hero, everybody, a cold-blooded killer. At
And
least
he's sort of the funny hero.
right. And it reminds me of when people were like a certain, I'll say a certain group of individuals in the world we live in are the types who've openly said that scene in Indiana Jones, the first one, where that swordsman has his sword out and he just pulls his gun out and shoots him, and they're like, "Oh, he just murdered that guy." It's like, well, he was gonna fight him, and he just chose to end the fight quicker than drag it out. That was the point of that scene. This one, the guy was unarmed, and he just kills him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also he, I think isn't the story that Harrison Ford like was drinking the night before and he didn't want to film a whole fight scene, so he literally said to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, "Can't I just shoot him?"
You know, I never knew that, but stuff like that is like movie magic and stuff from the past that you just don't get anymore. Like that is pure improv that helped. Again, how does that always seem to happen for Spielberg?
I don't know. Everything is too studio now.
Well, I mean, like
You know?
Spielberg. Oh, we want to show the shark. Oh, we can't make it work. And he winds up making Jaws better because we don't see the shark the whole time because it was broken.
Exactly. Well, and that also goes
This
to,
we could have
like,
had. This we could have had a sword fight, but instead we got a hilarious scene. One of the most memorable scenes of all the Indiana Jones movies.
Well, and I think another example of that is, and we talked about it almost a year ago. Can you believe this? When we were talking about Rocky, and I told you about how that, yeah, the look on your face just said like, wow, it has been almost a year.
Jeez.
But okay, but the scene in Rocky where he sort of goes to the arena the night before the fight and he sees the big banner with him, and the shorts are the wrong color. Well, that's because they actually printed off a poster with the wrong colored shorts. So Sylvester Stallone had to write in this scene so that he can call out that it's the wrong color.
See, nowadays they would just have CGI'd over it.
Yep. But no, it's just those little things that
the movies of the past don't have enough money to do something. Figure out a better way to do it.
Get around it, and it forces you to be more creative.
Always look at James Cameron.
Yeah,
Terminator, Aliens. Those didn't have major budgets, and those are far better than Avatar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see. So, have you got anything else?
No. Are you sort of in the same boat as me, just slightly above middle of the road for you?
It's all right.
maybe at middle of the road for you?
Yeah, dead middle of the
Okay.
road so far. It doesn't have anything majorly memorable. Like, maybe if Kharis had been in it longer, it might have had more, but it was like, it felt like 3/4 of the movie was build up for something that wasn't even really that big anyways. And when your movie's only 67 minutes long, it's like you kind of got to do something.
Yeah. Now, it's been years, but I think the next three movies sort of remedy this, and the mummy sort of actually becomes almost like a slasher villain, killing people off one by one.
Sweet.
So I believe that's sort of how it goes, but we'll see.
Hope so. I will say we got a while, I think, before we get to the next mummy movie.
Yeah, but there's three more of them: the Mummy's Tomb, the Mummy's Ghost, and the Mummy's Curse. I believe that's the order.
Yep.
Yep, looks like it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So, middle of the road for me. What about for you? Same.
Yeah, well, just slightly over middle of the road. I think it's fun enough that I say give this one. I say check this one out.
I agree. And if Kharis doesn't work for you, then like Ken just said, he supposedly shows up more in the next one. So check the next one out, which we'll talk about. I think like 4 or 5 episodes from now. I think something like that.
Okay.
Who knows? I don't know. I'll figure it out later. So. If that's it, you ready to call it?
Yep, I've got nothing else to say.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap on The Mummy's Hand. What did you think of it? Let us know below, and we will be back in a few weeks with The Invisible Woman.
Take it easy, everyone.